Hello everyone, and welcome. Yes, my name is Arrowfire. Welcome to a Halloween special, what is also a Day of the Dead episode, as I've never done a Day of the Dead special. Considering it falls in and around Halloween, I thought I'd do a combined video, a Halloween special and one celebrating the fabled festival of the Day of the Dead. And today, a video I've wanted to go through for a while, my top 5 Transformers deaths. Death in Transformers is something we are used to by now. Some deaths have a shock factor, some deaths have a final conclusion, some have emotional meaning. Today I'm going to go through what my top 5 deaths in Transformers are, and I hope you enjoy it.
Arrowfire's top 5.
Number 5, Ravage from IDW. There are a few deaths in IDW that I could choose from, but Ravage's was much more emotional, much more of a time that he was coming round to Megatron being an Autobot for a change, and how he would eventually come round to Megatron's way of thinking with an acceptance, which also led to his peacemaking. By the time Ravage finally let out his final breath, surrounded by his new teammates, so far away left this image of Soundwave who suddenly could no longer hear his friend. And this death resonated, and still does to this day, not so much for its passing where he was, but the fact that Soundwave was nowhere near him, yet he could feel the loss of his beloved friend. It is a death that is still felt. It is an emotional one that we would see a lot of with the IDW comics. Number 4, Armada, Starscream. Starscream has died before, so this will come as no surprise, but is one of the few occasions that Starscream sacrifices himself for the greater good, and how he would realise that Unicron was bigger than a fight between Optimus and Megatron, putting himself in danger to save everyone around him, Autobot and Decepticon alike. It's not something we see too often for the selfless sacrifice, something that doesn't befit the Starscream character we have seen to this day, or something we see very few and far between. But we saw a different edge, a much more emotional sacrifice, something that we weren't used to with his cowardice. It was refreshing to see. It was an interesting change, that he would be willing to put himself forward, he would take the berating from Megatron, and yet still come out doing the right thing, showing he had a good spark after all. Number 3, Unicron. It's not often that you see planet-sized death and destruction. Well, he ravaged his own destruction through the 1986 movie, but the death of a planet and a Titan Transformer doesn't really happen too much, and so when the Matrix is completely opened up, causing the entirety of the inside of Unicron to destruct at a moment's notice, causing his head to fly off into deep space that would rid the galaxy of this deep evil, yet for his head to still survive. There is a sense of galactic proportions to this. This is a death that cannot be understated. One of the only 2 times that the Matrix is fully opened and used, at least in the context of the cartoon. It is a very large-scale death, and deserving of the film that it was in, the grandeur ending. But how often do you see planetary size, god size, Primus size, planets and beings forming into self-destruction? A very satisfying ending. Number 2, Optimus Prime. An emotional death and a somewhat hollow one. Really, the death was to sacrifice all of the original characters to make way for new characters to sell more toys. But the hero saving the day, or so we thought, who would then fall on his sword with perhaps the aid of another, which would cause the problems for every child in attendance. This death carried emotional weight, but a real resonating shockwave to the other Autobots as well. They lost their true leader. They lost their hero. They were rudderless, and it would take a long time for another one to take up the mantle successfully. This death still resonates today as being the first time that Optimus died. He was injured before, but never to this state. It really sent us down the path of death in Transformers, being the first one, being the most emotional hitting for fans, whilst it served a cold purpose and kept a storyline going. Its death with the beloved fan base for a beloved character has shockwaves still to this day. And number 1, Beast Wars Dinobot, the Code of Hero episode. The sacrifice of a warrior, never to be forgotten. At this stage of Beast Wars, Dinobot was feeling quite lost. He did not have anywhere else to go. He did not have many fights to do. He felt like he had betrayed his own team. He felt he had lost his honour. And preparing to sacrifice himself at the very start of the episode really told you where this bot's head was at. So when an opportunity came for redemption, and again a willing sacrifice, very similar to Starscream in that sense, but willing to say what would be the early forms of the human race in a prehistoric past, taking on all Predacon forces one at a time, overriding his own systems that were forcing him to shut down for restoration. He carried on regardless, battered and bruised. In the end, his body could take no more. With a eulogy, a fine speech at the end, the weight of this victory cannot be understated. He survived the onslaught. He defied all the odds, sending away the Predacons, saving the future humans, and as such began his ascension to the Matrix, a place he richly deserves, a death that still means a great deal for what goes down as the favourite death, the most noble death, a very hard-hitting one with a beautiful script of music and scripting of dialogue around it. It is still a beloved character's noble ending and a fitting ending for a warrior. And there we go, that is my top 5 deaths in a Halloween Day of the Dead crossover episode. What are yours? Do leave a note in the comments below as to who you think the best 5 deaths are in the Transformers fandom. But thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you on the next one.